Hello, everyone. This is Les Solgrove with Simply Des Moines Market Values for week 49. It is December 7th, 2025, which means that we're entering into the final 3 weeks of this year. And I thought this week's show would be an excellent opportunity to give you some talking points to your clients because the market has slowed way down with, with the holiday season things coming and everything. And this show is specifically geared to give you content to talk to your clients, both buyers and sellers, with and help prepare them for 2026. So, with that, let's get started with the show. All right, here we go. This is the view from most of your sellers and buyers right now. It's going to look the same now for probably the next 3 weeks, especially with the snow we've been getting. They're going to be sitting in front of the fireplace enjoying family time. So I really feel like this is an excellent opportunity when you have a captive audience, when people are basically at home, they're talking, around the dinner table, around the living room, families around, and you know what, this is really the best time to kind of start talking about what's happened this past year in a way that will help give them a nice setup for maybe what's going to happen in 2026. So let's take a quick look at the dashboard, and then we will jump right into the show because I really think this is going to be a great show for you guys. All right, week 49, we're currently sitting at 4,354 homes for sale. That's down from last week. The inventory levels are still predominantly heavy with the single family resale with 2,415 homes on the market, 380 new construction condo townhomes. So there's the big difference. We've only got 380 existing condo townhomes, 466 resale condo townhomes, and new construction inventory coming in at almost 1,100 of the home inventory level. So 4,354. Remember, we were at 4,500 at one point this year so far. We'll talk about that as well. Price reductions were back in fashion again this week. 308 homes had price reductions. Only 10 had increases. So we'll talk about that as well. The last thing we're going to talk about here is right over here on the dashboard is 12,992 homes closed to date, with our target to beat last year at December 31st, 13,226. We will do that. It's just a matter of how far above that we'll do. We're going to be very, very close. And of course, interest rates have dropped again this week. They're not quite at the year-to-date low at 6.17%, but I would imagine that unless something shakes up this week, we might actually get to our year-to-date low on mortgage interest rates. So, all right, let's jump in now to some really, really good graphics. I really want you to go to Des Moines Market Values this week after the show and go to the download show graphics and download these graphics that you're going to see today, because you can use these in your marketing. You can start a blog post, put them in your newsletters. It's just this graphic part only that you really want to kind of focus on this week, and understand that I am not your competition. I don't sell. You can certainly use this, just don't do anything with the attribution so that we are in line with the local MLS rules here. But this is a fantastic graphic showing you kind of where pricing has gone this past year. And we're going to kind of talk about this theme of looking at it maybe up close and then zooming out, or maybe we'll zoom out and zoom in, but there's going to be plenty of graphics here that are going to show you kind of what's happening on the more frequent level, the most recent year or recent periods, and then going out. Because what this graphic is going to show you is, if you're just going to talk about this particular graphic, you're going to say, okay, prices started out around that $350,000 price mark. They rose a little bit through the spring market, which is fairly common. And then after summer hit, we saw this downturn in list price. Now, again, list price is not what the homes are selling for. The list prices are basically where home owners and home sellers are hoping that they can sell their home for. And what you see here is there's a pretty good dramatic difference here between what the homes were listing for and what they're selling for. And those numbers are coming closer as we get toward the end of the year, which means that home sellers are starting to understand that the pricing of homes is changing. We're no longer in that high price, list price era, getting very close. We're at list price. The homes that are going under contract are closer to the sale price. And in fact, our sale prices are continuing to rise just a little bit, about 10,000 this year to date. Again, this is not an appreciation of value. This is just simply the market talking for this past year. We'll talk about appreciation of values at the year-end report, which will probably be late January, maybe that first week of February after I get all the data in. But anyway, so how can we tell this story a little better and kind of give the homeowners and home sellers out there, even home buyers, this idea that maybe things are changing even more dramatically than what we're just seeing by looking at the 12-month view. So let's take a look back here, and we're going to go all the way back to 2016. And I've got the box over here. We're going to take this box out in a second, but this is the box. This is the area we just looked at in that last graphic. And so what you looked at here and you saw, well, there's a pretty good gap. When you start to look back, let's get rid of that box. When you start to look back over time, there are periods of time where that list price gap is higher than the split is higher between the sale price and the asking prices. But those are just different types of that real estate cycle that we talk about here, where prices rise and sometimes pull the sale prices up, or sometimes the sale prices don't come up and they pull the list prices down. And I think that's kind of where we've been here, because if you look at sale pricing here, it's fairly steady. It's going up a little bit. 2020, of course, this is when COVID was in play, and we saw a fairly dramatic jump in pricing in that time period. But really from 2023 on, we haven't seen anything real major as far as price increases after when rates went up and prices kind of jumped a little bit because of that. You can see that we're kind of stabilizing really that last 2.5 to 3 years. And also this gap, this major gap between list price and sale price has narrowed. Now, we looked at it earlier and it was narrowing somewhat, but you can see that it's the list price of homes. Home sellers are finally understanding that the list price is not where it's likely going to end up selling at. And so therefore, this last year, we've seen tons and tons of price reductions. I'm going to show you that slide here, either next or right after the next slide here. Before we talk about that, though, let's talk a little bit about homes that are off the market here. This is a graphic I don't talk about a whole lot, usually about the end of the year or at the year-end report. This is an AVM, an automated valuation model, and I call it a study because it's on a specific home. It's a 2-story, 1,800 square feet in Des Moines, and this is a home that I do a monthly market analysis on. I also look at CoreLogic, I look at Zillow, I look at 3 different AVMs that are out there. And I average all the AVMs that are out there together. And what I come up with is basically the value of a home, this Des Moines 2-story home, throughout the year. Now, most home sellers and homeowners will sit there and you ask them any time of the year, what's their house worth? They're going to probably have a single number. They're probably going to say their home is worth X. And that might be based on their assessed value, or it might be based on what their neighbors sold their house for, even not just last year or last week. It might have been what they sold their home for during the COVID marketplace. But somewhere in the line there, a homeowner probably has one number in mind of what their home is valued at. And what this study shows you is that while homes are typically, there's probably a valuation in there that's fairly steady. This tells you that a home's value does fluctuate throughout the year based on what time of year it is and maybe what's going on in the marketplace. And so this particular Des Moines 2-story, at the high point, it was about $340,000, $339,800 if it were to go on the market. based on recent comps, and that's comparable sales within the last 6 months, and all the other AVM models that I compare the number to. This number actually starts out lower at the first of the year. And what I want you to do is use this graphic, but don't go out there and say, okay, Des Moines two-stories are worth 325 or 340 or whatever. That's not the point of this graphic. And in fact, this is a specific property. What I want to tell you is that at the early stages of the year, home values are a little bit lower because we're leading into it from the previous fall when home sales are lower. So the value, the market value of a home typically starts to increase as demand, the old supply and demand, starts to increase. And that's kind of what you see on off-market properties. They tend to have a little bit more value in the spring, and then they peak at the summer, and then the valuation, not the what the home's going to sell for, but the valuation or the perceived valuation of a property value goes down as we get near the end of the year. And this year it's been fairly dramatic. You can see the black lines from last year. This just shows you that because I've done this valuation now for many years, I just show you the last year. It does show you that there is some built-in appreciation of values overall. Again, this is not the actual appreciation, but if you were to say week 26, a year ago, this home would have been valued at about 325, and this year it's valued at about 340 at the highest point. That's this property only, but again, the market kind of does this. So this is a great graphic to show home sellers who are thinking that their home value is set and it's only this number until they get an assessment, a market analysis, or the neighbor's home sells, or that they hear a number off the national news that the valuations are different. This number does fluctuate every single month. So, okay, let's talk about the price reductions. So this is one of those great graphics, again, that you can use in your marketing coming through the end of the year and into next year. And while it looks kind of colorful and you got the little stars up there and it's divided out by years, this one, once you start to look at it, you can see, for example, over here in 2017, the average number of price reductions on a weekly basis were 200. So you could say we're going to have about 200 homes on the marketplace every week are going to come down in price. And the minimum and maximum, get near the end of the year. That week there were 52. The maximum was 307, and that's what the little sun style or the sun icon is. And then the total number of price reductions for the entire year. So if you look at a home that went on the market for 20, 30 days, and all of a sudden the seller says, hey, reduce that price. Well, they might reduce that price once, they might reduce it twice, or more times. And so every time there's a price reduction, that counts in this total. It's not the number of listings that had price reductions. This is the number of times a price reduction has occurred. So over here on the left, in 2017, there were 10,358 price reductions in the entire year. As you go across, and we'll just look at last year here, we had 14,600 price reductions. And that was last year. We thought we had a lot of price reductions. Well, this year we've had even more. In fact, the 1 week near the summertime, we had 557 price reductions with an average of almost 390 every single week compared to 200 down here. So the question I have is, any guesses here? And this will be a quiz when I do the year-end report. How many price reductions do you think we've had so far this year? Well, you're going to find out, and I guess I really can't wait to show you till next week, because I'm going to go ahead and show you this number right here, right over here. We have had, there it is, 19,083 price reductions year to date, and we still have 3 weeks to go. So we'll probably, it's very possible we could have 20,000 price reductions as we get through the end of this year. Maybe not, but if we're averaging 389, yeah, we probably will have 20,000 price reductions by the end of the year. So use this graphic when you're listing homes, say, to tell your sellers, price it right from the very, very beginning. This is a property statistic that doesn't go away. You know, we get this idea that our home is worth way higher than maybe it is, and it stays on the market. And we all know that once you start to reduce the price, if you reduce it more than once and you reduce it often, you're probably going to get well under what the market value is, just because you're trying to now chase that market value. So price it right to begin with, and it should sell very, very quickly. Another graphic that we can look at here is the number of homes for sale. Now, this is a monthly graphic that I put out, and we probably saw this one last week on the monthly show, but what this will give you an idea to talk to home sellers about is how many homes there are on the market as opposed to how many each month. This kind of gives you that nice trend showing that after COVID hit, obviously we hit a low point in homes on the market counts. We were down at one point under 1,600 homes on the market there. But what we've seen here since 2022, we've seen inventory building every single year. In fact, we started out January of 2025 at 3,490 homes on the marketplace, and we almost hit, well, we did hit over 4,500. So what's likely going to happen is we're going to start January 2026 with probably 4,000 homes on the market, unless we see a huge drop off. But we're going to probably see 4,000 as that base, which will tell you that if we went from 3,500 to 4,000 in 1 year, and we start the year at 4,000, even if we hit just 1,000 more homes, it's entirely possible that we could be breaking into that 5,000, 4,500 easily, and maybe that 5,000 homes on the market numbers by sometime in 2026. So we'll watch this number. Just give homeowners the idea that, hey, your competition is going to be increasing as we move into the new year. And again, one more reason to price your homes right, because if the buyers have more choices, they also have more power. And so you want to make sure you're giving them that opportunity to sell. Speaking of which, if we go all the way back to 2009, and remember I said we could very possibly hit 5,000, we really only have that milestone until we are back to prior to 2012 pricing, because if this same trending's coming up that we see over here at the right side, you know, we will be looking at and comparing our inventory levels all the way back to 2011 and 2010 and 2009, when we almost hit 6,000. Will we hit 6,000 homes on the market? No, I don't think so. The market would have to have something that caused home buyers to basically stop buying and home sellers to continue to list, and I don't see that happening. If something were to happen and we didn't have you know, something that would cause home buyers to stop buying, I would think that home sellers are going to probably stop listing as well. But you can see that we're at 4,515 homes, and this is the talking point that you can give your homeowners and your sellers and buyers, is that we're back to inventory levels back from 2012. So 14 years ago, right? 2022, yeah, 14 years ago. I could do quick math in my head. 14 years ago is the last time we had this kind of inventory. So take this information and use it to your advantage. As far as just kind of looking at this same number, and we're going to look at active pendings as well here. From 2022, what you see is basically this trend line that shows a straight direct increase from 2022 to 2026. And so this is going to give us that idea that this inventory is going to continue to rise into 2026 and into 2027. So that's one of the reasons why I'm making that prediction that we will get closer to and maybe even likely hit that 5,000 inventory mark in 2026. If we look at sale pendings now, we know that the last couple of years sales have been slower, and it's really felt that way. I mean, home sellers are seeing that happen, and this is also the reason why we've seen so many price reductions. But if we put the trend line on this now, instead of seeing a continued downward trend, now we're starting to see that 2025 was probably the year that we've started this trend back upwards. Whether or not we've kind of feeling like the market's picking up, this trend line shows that it is, because 2022 we had this huge high and then that huge low all the way to 2023. But what you see at the low is that it really never gets very, very low. I mean, very much lower than that 2023 number. And in fact, we're starting to see 2024, the low peaks just a little bit higher, and 2025, that low is just a little bit higher yet. We're also seeing that not much gain at the high points, but this trailing down here is going at a little bit less of a dramatic drop off, where we see 2024 we had a little bit of a stall, but then it really dropped. So I think that we're going to probably end the year not as low as we did in 2024, and that's another reason why this trend line is starting to curve back upwards. So this gives me optimism and hope that we're going to see more sales activity as we move into 2026 as well. So again, this is a great graphic to put in a blog post or drop in a social media file and say, hey, look, sales have been slow, but you know what? The turn is coming, and we're going to see more sales in the coming year. As far as time on the market, this is kind of a direct correlation as well. So days on the market, obviously back in 2022, prior to the rise of those interest rates that we saw that year, the high point of days on market was about 16 or 17. And as we move throughout the following years with the rise of interest rates, obviously so does the days on market. But what we're seeing here, again, instead of seeing this trend start to go more in an upward turn, we're starting to see that kind of fall off. And a lot of that is because, the high points in 2023 was about almost 35 days on the market was at one point where it was the highest. 2024, we were just over 45 days. 2025, that's dropped a little bit. Yes, it feels like it's slower, but we are seeing this number start to go back down again a little bit. Yes, it does feel like it's been on the market. Homes have been on the market quite some time, but this is a good sign for us. So, give home sellers that opportunity and that optimism that, homes are going to start to sell a little bit faster based on the numbers. So when we're talking about number of sales, let's take a quick look here at the annual closed sales. So this is the number that I record as of December 31st of every year. So remember that when I close out the books for the end of the year, I take a snapshot of December 31st. And then as the new year comes along, I start to bring back in those sales and update the number to those sales. So it says last year we closed 13,226 homes. We actually closed 13,500 or 13,600, but as of December 31st, this was the number. And we're currently sitting at 12,992. And my prediction is we're going to close 2025 out at December 31st, right around that 13,500 number. Now, of course, it's going to go up after that. I don't think it's going to push us into 14,000 closed sales for the year when all sales are in, but it's certainly going to be a better year closed count than we saw in 2024 or 2023. So again, imagine that trend line that we've been seeing here. If I were to add that, it would be down and then back up again here, and we'll probably do something like that. So 2021 was our all-time best year. A lot of that was due to COVID at 17,800 closed sales. That was a crazy, crazy year there, as well as 2021. We really can't do this show with this topic without looking at mortgage interest rates. So what I thought I would do is go all the way back to Freddie Mac's report of the median interest rate. So this is the national interest rate each week, going all the way back to when they started to record these. So in the 1970s, the median rate, in other words, from the 1971 to 1980, the median rate, so the rates were either above or below this 8.89% interest rate. The 1980s were probably one of the most turbulent times in real estate, with high mortgage rates going as high as almost 20%, and only coming down to around that just under 10% for a short period of time in the late 86, 87 period there. 1990s, we started to see mortgage interest rates start to gradually come down consistently. Yes, there were some periods in there that rates went up a little bit, but overall we saw that decade rates went down. Same thing with the 2000s, and then 2010 through 2020 was really where we saw those lowest interest rates there. And we didn't think that, we really thought, again, looking at this trend line, we thought that rates were probably going to start to go back up a little bit. And then we had COVID and all the different things going on in our marketplace, which pushed us temporarily into this sub 3% or sub 4% into the 3% interest rates through the early years of our current decade. And now that we've had 5 full years under our belt, or will have 5 full years, when you take the higher mortgage rates that we've seen since 2022, and we match those up with the early 3 years of 2020 to 2022, that means our median rate is right now about 5.3%. So of the 5 years, half of those years, half of that time, we've seen rates at 5.3% or above, and half we've seen at 5.3 below. And so what we do is we look at that a little bit closer here. So looking at the decade from 2010 to 2020, and then the last 5 years, what you can kind of see is that everybody has this memory, or at least has had this memory of when rates were at or under 3%. And when it hit that, you would think that we were at under 3% for the last 20 years based on everybody's memory. But when in truth, we've been really around that 4 to 5% rate. And again, our median rate right now is just over 5%. It just looks terrible because we've had higher rates the last 3 or 4 years, and we're actually seeing rates start to trend down. We could actually end the 2020 decade. So within the next 5 years, if rates were to come down around that 5%, which is, somewhat likely in 5 years, maybe not next year, that median rate could actually drop closer to about a 4% if you factor in those first 3 years when they were very, very low. So I think what we're seeing is, with rates coming up this high, we're seeing lots of price reductions, time on the market longer. The homeowners' memories are starting to dwindle from this very, very low 3% rate, and starting to kind of see that the picture is a little bit higher rates means that time on the market is going to be affected, and they're kind of understanding this is now the norm, not this. All right, I think one more graphic here, and then we'll cut the show. It's a little longer show. I do appreciate you guys sticking with me, but these are fantastic graphics for you guys to share with the clients, as I mentioned. This is just looking from COVID on. So this gives you that idea of 2019, where we were with rates. And again, if you want to use this graphic and the one before it and say, look, rates aren't really up that much compared to where we were before COVID. They're up a little bit still. And then this is that COVID time period where they were down below 3% for a short period of time. And I like this one because it kind of outlines where COVID was and the timeline there. So anyway, that is the show. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in every week. If you enjoy the content and find it valuable, please hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell. Those little tasks will help me share this channel to grow and to create more great videos for you guys all. So again, thank you so much. Enjoy your holiday season, and don't stop working. Maybe you aren't going to be out showing as many houses or listing as many houses, but make those communications valuable. Use these graphics this week, and I think you'll start off with a fantastic 2026. So we'll talk to you all again next week. Thanks for joining me.